हाउस ऑफ वेलनेस के एक और एपिसोड में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today we will be focusing on the mental as well as the physical aspect by exploring brain gym and understanding how resilience can be enhanced by brain gym movements.
It gives me immense happiness to introduce my dear friend and mentor, Lisa Marcovici, who has joined us today from all the way from Canada. Lisa is a Brain Gym faculty member. She has been associated with Brain Gym since the last 22 years. Since 2006, her workshops have been presented to various associations. Her goal is to make movement-based learning accessible to everyone. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Minaz. And it's so nice to meet you, Sonam. I'm so honored and happy to be here. It's always been my passion to share.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My first question to you is, how do we define resilience and why is it so important in these times?
That's a really good question. And what I'm going to do is just share a few pictures with you because one picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
Absolutely.
So resilience is a word that comes up a lot, right, in the last couple of years, especially since COVID. And I find that it has different meanings to different people, but I always consider resilience to mean to have the resources to meet a challenge when it comes our way. You know, it's a successful adaptation to something difficult, to adversity. And being able to cope with a crisis or with something unexpected or something stressful, I think is key to being able to live a joyful, fluid, easy kind of life. Resilience to me sounds like a very flexible, bouncy kind of word. It's the opposite of getting stuck in something and feeling the heaviness of something. So being able to have tools to harvest, to cultivate that resilience, I think is really important, not just for seniors, but for children of all ages, from 0 to 99, as I like to refer to humans, but especially for seniors who are often isolated and feeling loneliness and sadness.
Okay, so what can we do to cultivate resilience, especially with regard to senior population?
Yeah, that is a really good question. And again, I think the answer applies to all of us, but specifically if we look at it in the framework of seniors, very often there's a lot of stress because sometimes we need more help than we would like to accept. We lose loved ones. Our memory is not so reliable. Our sense of balance is not so reliable. There's many reasons. Seniors often tend not to drink very much because it's complicated to go to the washroom. You know, all these kinds of reasons which cause stress. They do cause stress to the body. And I just wanted to remind you with this picture that when we feel stress, it's not just something that goes on in our head. We have a very strong survival physiological response to stress, and it affects our eyes, it affects our ears, it affects our digestion, it affects our blood pressure, right? The heartbeat starts to accelerate, even our skin when we feel cold or warm or sweaty. So it's a huge impact on our physiology to feel stress, and being able to notice that, to have the awareness and then start to do something about it, I think is a huge gift that we can give to our seniors. And then the other one is to have confidence in our own ability to respond to things. So our own cognitive skills, to align what we feel, what we sense in our bodies with our emotions and with what we think about it. Because often it feels like things are a little bit overwhelming and all over the place. So that feeling of centeredness, I think, is another aspect that would be important about resilience. And then I think when speaking with seniors, often the themes that come up are memory and balance, right? The fear of forgetting or being forgotten, and then the fear of falling, just being steady on your feet, being able to get up off that chair, having the energy to move yourself. So I find that those are things that if we can reinforce those aspects, then we can help to cultivate resilience. And sometimes it's very simple to cultivate resilience. I mean, something as simple as drinking water is going to go a long way to balance your energy. I know, Minaz, we've talked about that before. You know, brain is 85% water. Our body is 70% water. It assists digestion. It assists in breathing, especially with COVID going around. It helps, you know, lubricate the lungs. It maintains cellular polarity, which is essential to our robust immune system. So even if you just start drinking more water, you've already started building more resilience. another thing that my mentor, and I think Manaz's too, one of our favorite teachers, Carla Hannaford, this is her playing the violin with her husband at her daughter's wedding. Playing a musical instrument, even listening to music, it decreases Alzheimer's or dementia by 69%. And that's another easily accessible thing that we can do. Another one that I love to do, and I meet with my friends every week on Zoom, we dance. Now we get to meet in person, but for 2 years we met on Zoom to dance, listening to music, just moving our bodies very freely, decreases the chance of Alzheimer's again and dementia by nearly 80%. I mean, those are simple things that have a huge impact on our wellness and our ability to be resilient. One more that I'd like to go through. I know it's a long answer to a short question. Those are all things that we can use to foster resilience, is touch. We forget sometimes how something so simple can have such a huge impact. Every time we touch someone, even if it's our pet or we are touched, we start producing brain-derived nerve growth factor, which again reinforces the neural network in our brains, but it also produces a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which again has been linked to the lack of acetylcholine has been directly linked to the onset of Alzheimer's disease. So when we isolate ourselves, when we cannot touch, which is again the reality for the last 2 years or so, these are all things that can contribute to the opposite of cultivating resilience. So again, even if it's a little gentle massage we give ourselves or as couples or with caregivers, these are all simple little things that we can do to cultivate resilience.
That's absolutely wonderful to know all these lovely options that can be followed. I would like to ask you, how can movement and specifically brain gym movement help in resilience?
Yeah, so that's another one. Like we mentioned dancing, which kind of gets you moving, but to show you in terms of what happens when we move. So when we sit quietly, you see this picture of the brain on the left. This person has been sitting quietly for maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, not hours. And we spend hours sitting quietly sometimes, right? Especially in the senior setting. Sometimes they can spend all day, maybe they're bound to a wheelchair or they're not so mobile or it's hot or we're tired. We don't tend to move a lot. And so the brain starts to shut down. The brain is actually quite lazy. If it doesn't need to activate the body, it's going to go into an automatic resting kind of phase. And you see that there's very little active parts. The more red and yellow you see, the more the brain is active. Whereas if we get up and even just a little 20-minute walk, look how much activity there is in the brain now. And when we think about listening, so the auditory sections are near the ears. When we think about seeing, the visual cortex is at the back of the brain. The frontal lobes, the neocortex, where we think about things, all go to rest when we don't move. And they all become accessible again when we do move. So sometimes taking a 20-minute walk is not always possible, although that is one of the quickest and easiest way of getting the brain active. So this is why we brought up the subject of brain gym, which a few minutes of brain gym with just a few exercises as we're about to experience can give us that same impact as moving vigorously or walking would. And so you might know a little bit already about brain gym, and I won't go into all the details, but it was created in the 80s by Dr. Paul Dennison, who's another hero of Manaz's and mine. He is a pioneer in the field of neurological development. And the reason why I want to show you the picture, this poster of the 26 brain gym movements, is to kind of bring your attention to the fact that they're divided into 3 groups. There's a red group at the bottom, the blue groups and green in the middle, and the yellow group at the top. And each one of these groups is going to have a different effect on our brain-body system. So before we do any kind of stimulating, like to light up the brain, we always begin by releasing stress, which is one of the things we talked about earlier. And then we want to feel centered and confident in our body, which is another thing we talked about earlier, to access our memory and our sense of balance. So the blue exercises and the energy exercises are going to help to access that. And then we're going to stimulate right and left hemispheres to start having the 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 hands, 2 feet really move and light up the rest of the brain, kind of like a happy Christmas tree. So that's kind of in a nutshell how we use brain gym. And I thought that the best way to explain it really would be to experience a few brain gym movements together.
Yes.
And yes.
That's the question that I was going to just ask you, Lisa, if you could demonstrate a few brain gym movements for us.
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to feel the difference and to feel the impact. I know you've already played with them a little bit in the exploring pace, but before we do explore a few range of movements, I'm just going to ask you to take one little minute and just notice how if you're seated, how you're seated in your chair. Maybe feel your feet on the floor. And just notice perhaps your level of energy on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 being very, very excited, maybe even nervous, almost too much energy, and 1 being, oh, it's time for my nap. I just have to go sleep right now. So no energy at all. And generally we want to be around the 6, 7 area. So, a little bit ready, it's kind of ready to go kind of thing, but still able to sit quiet if we need to. So just notice on that scale of 1 to 10 where you're located right now. And even notice as you're listening, if your chin is kind of pulling you forward and you're straining to hear the words, or your eyes are really focusing on making sure you don't miss a single word. Are you really trying to get the information? Just notice if maybe your forehead is even frowning a little bit, if your neck is tight, and you can even move your head just a little bit from side to side to notice if there's any tension in that neck area, which often gets tight when we sit for long periods of time. And if I would ask you to get up, just stand up, just notice, is that requiring a lot of effort, a lot of energy? Do you even want to do it? If you don't want to do it, that's totally fine. But just notice how much get up and go you have, and maybe you don't right now, and which is totally okay. This is just kind of to have a way of measuring the impact of doing a little bit of brain gym. We're going to do about 3 minutes of it. Okay? So this will be our before picture. And let's do a couple of exercises to then be able to compare. And the first one that I'd like to do actually is something called the calf pump, which is really designed to get that cerebral spinal fluid moving, which irrigates the brain and which becomes very stagnant when we sit still for a long time. So ideally, we do that when standing up. If you cannot stand, I will show you an adaptation to do it seated, which I often do, especially via Zoom. Either way, I'm going to back up just a little bit so you can see more. And if you are able to stand, I'm going to invite you to stand just behind your chair so that you can hold on to the back of the chair. I'm just going to see where I can hold myself. Here we go. And my feet are just under my hips and my body's nice and straight. And I'm just gently holding on to the chair for balance. And I'm going to take my right foot and place it behind me just enough so that the toes touch the floor. And then very gently, I'm going to inhale. And as I exhale, I'm going to bend the front knee, so the left knee, and push the right heel towards the floor. Very, very gently. It might not touch the floor. And then I'm going to inhale to come back up. So I straighten that left knee. And then exhale to one more time, press that right heel into the floor. Good now. So I'm going to put the left foot behind me just so that the toes are touching. And you see that I'm going to bend the right knee to push that left heel towards the floor. And it might touch the floor, but it might not. That's okay. And then as I inhale, I straighten the right foot and my left leg is very straight and I'm pushing that heel towards the floor. You might feel it at the back of your body. So as we create this pump, it's really the equivalent to walking. It really helps to get that fluid moving and energizes the whole body and lengthens out those muscles that get very tight and shortened when we sit for a long time. So if standing is not an option, let me show you a version that we can do seated. And I'm going to hope that you can still see my feet. No, here we go. Yes. So you see that I'm just seated in my chair with both of my legs out in front of me. My heels are resting on the floor and my toes are kind of flexed upwards. So what I'm going to do is bring my toes even more towards my nose, and you can feel the calf muscle lengthening as you do that. And then I'm going to point my toes towards the floor, push the toes towards the floor. So inhaling to flex my toes and exhaling to push them towards the floor. And if doing both feet at the same time is too much, like I'm just doing my right foot right now, you can easily do it just one foot at a time if that feels more stable. Just flexing the toes as much as you can and then pushing the toes towards the floor. And you can really feel that calf muscle working as you do that little movement. So standing up is more effective, but this will work as well, sitting down. So I'm coming back now for the next exercise, unless there's any questions on that one. Is that okay? Yes.
Absolutely.
So let's do good. So we're going to do two more. One of them will be the thinking caps, which is one of my personal favorites. So for this one, we're going to use the index and thumb and simply grab the top of the ear and very gently pull up and unroll the earlobe. So you see the ear. So I'm pulling just a little bit. And when I get to the bottom, I'm going to pull downwards just a bit. And then I let go and begin again at the top. So gently, gently pulling as you unroll. And what you might start to feel is that the ear gets a little warm and it might even get a little soft. So you're stimulating many points in terms of memory and auditory for listening. And in the ancient traditional Chinese medicine called acupuncture, there's over 100 places to put the needle just in the ear. It's a whole science, all the places that we can stimulate when we do this one. So just very gently keep going until it's nice and soft and warm. And then the last one I'd like to do is a little bit of visual relaxation. So in Brain Gym, we have something that we call the lazy 8. So basically like the infinity sign, right? So it's an 8 that's lying on its side. So I'm going to invite you to take your thumb and put it in front of your nose with your elbow that's slightly bent. So I'm just going to show you my elbow here. And then I'm going to draw the 8 in front of my nose. So I'm going to go straight up in the middle and come around one belly of the 8. Doesn't matter right or left. And then straight up in the middle again and draw the other belly of the 8. So you see we're drawing like a little infinity sign, and my head is going to stay nice and quiet as my eyes gently follow the tracing of that 8. You can relax your shoulders and you can blink and you can breathe and just see if you can relax your forehead and just let your eyes follow the movement of your thumb. And maybe after a few turns, we're going to use the thumb from the other hand. And if that arm has trouble moving, often I encourage people to even help. You can guide your hand, or if you're a caregiver for someone, you can guide the person's hand that needs to do the 8. And just let your eyes follow this shape once more. And then to finish this movement, we'll make a little X, so crossing the two thumbs together and then tracing that 8 with both arms. And again, just the eyes following the movement. Your head stays nice and quiet. There you go. And then I'm going to ask you to go back to the picture that we took at the beginning. So notice now, after just 3 or 4 little exercises, if anything has changed in terms of your posture. Maybe the way your feet touch the floor or the way your spine is supporting your head. Just notice without really adjusting anything. And then maybe turn your head a little bit from side to side and notice if anything changed in terms of the tension that you might have felt earlier. Is it the same intensity? Has anything? Just notice what's different.
Yeah,
And maybe
so
also,
Lisa, I want to come in here. So when I turned my neck in the beginning, I could feel the stress here behind my neck, but now it's moving further and with ease.
nice. Yeah. And you know, when you can move your neck, then you can also listen to people and you can be interested in what's going on. Yeah. What about your energy level? Did you guys notice if there was any change there?
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
possibly a 5. I'm around 7 now. I did not stand and do the movement. I continue to sit, but yes,
Mhm.
I feel better.
Yeah.
And you did it sitting down too,
Yes,
right?
yes, I
Right.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. So
And I went from 5 to 8.
nice. Yeah. And it's evening for you guys. So that's,
Yes.
and if I would ask you now, you know, to just stand up and do something, has your desire, your motivation to stand changed at all? Like, do you feel more receptive to movement maybe, or is it the same? It might be the same.
No.
Yes, I want to stand up, but if I do, then my earphones will pop. But yes, I will definitely feel like standing up, and I can do anything now.
Nice. And just, you know, 3 minutes, right?
Absolutely.
So, and to me, that's the definition of resilience, the fluidity, this ability to move and adapt. We don't feel stuck anymore. We don't feel powerless anymore. It's like getting your power back. Yeah.
It's been
There you
wonderful,
go.
ma'am. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for all of these movements and for making us understand the relationship between the mind and the body through Brain Gym. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time and knowledge. And
Thank you,
You're
Lisa.
so welcome.
Thank you so much.
cheers to wellness.
Cheers to wellness.
Wellness.